guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Heaven if you are new here, and I'm a motherhood and homemaking vlogger. Today we are getting into all of the freezer dump meals so that we can get ready and have all the food that we need for after we have our baby girl. I'm making a month worth of dinner and breakfast options, a little bit of lunch options for my family to enjoy, to make sure that my family has easily accessible, healthy meals so that we're not always eating out or spending a lot of money for dinner and breakfast and things like that while we are healing and getting used to being now a family of 4. I just wanted to go ahead and make some meals ahead of time. I'm hoping that it shouldn't take too long, but that is also going to be very well worth it. So if you're looking for some food recipe inspiration, some freezer meal prep inspiration, this video is going to be for you. I just found out today that I am already 4 centimeters dilated. I have no idea when our baby is going to come, but all of a sudden I'm in like panic mode and I feel like I gotta get this stuff done. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into it, and I hope that you guys will join me and follow along. Here is what I'm working with today. I'm going to try and make all of this, if not all of it, then most of it. I have some sweet Italian ground sausage for some baked ziti. I also have some sirloin here for either a teriyaki dish or a breakfast bake. I have some skinless chicken breast I'm going to use for some chicken Alfredo. I also have some chicken breast strip, and I think this is for like chicken fajitas maybe. I have a chicken thigh a meal that I'm planning to make today, as well as some spaghetti and some taco meat. Over here I have some shrimp that I'm planning to use for a shrimp fettuccine, and then I also have a bunch of vegetables. So that's what I'm working with today. The first freezer meal that I am preparing is a baked ziti, and I am using sweet Italian ground sausage. And I'm going to go ahead and let that cook while I'm also multitasking. So while I'm making this, I'm also going to be preparing like other meals. You guys just aren't going to see it because the way that I edited it was so that everything can kind of just be like a step-by-step process instead of me being everywhere. So I went ahead and added some green peppers to the Italian sweet ground sausage, as well as a can of Prego sauce. I actually used 2 cans of the Prego sauce just to make sure that it doesn't dry out, and then I mixed that in there with a couple of seasonings. I kept it pretty basic, just salt and pepper and a little bit of Italian seasoning as well. Mix that in there, and in the pot next to me I already have the pasta boiling. So the next thing I had to do was take some cooked spinach and added some ricotta cheese to it. And I did this gradually just to make sure that it mixes up well. So just starting with like a couple of spoonfuls, mixing that in there, and then gradually adding more and more. And the fact that the spinach is still hot is what helps me to mix it up a little bit easier. So once I get the ricotta cheese mixed up in there pretty well, I also added in some shredded Parmesan cheese because I love cheese on like almost everything, but especially inside of my Italian dishes. So not only am I going to be adding it on top, but I also decided to go ahead and add some inside of the ricotta and spinach mixture as well, and got that blended in there really well. Once that was done, it was time to go ahead and start layering everything inside of a pan. So I started by putting some of that meat and sauce right at the very bottom of the pan. Not too much, just enough to like coat the bottom of it. And then the rest of the sauce and meat, I mixed the penne pasta noodles with it. I was gonna use some ziti noodles, but I decided to just go ahead and use the penne pasta instead. So I mixed that inside of the meat sauce as well. And then I began layering. So first the meat and the sauce, and then some of the pasta. And once the pasta was laid on there nice and evenly, I went ahead and added my spinach, ricotta cheese, and Parmesan mixture. And I tried to get that on there nice and even as well. So I'm only doing 1 layer of this. I didn't necessarily want to worry about like going very light. Like, of course I didn't want it too heavy, but it's gonna be the perfect amount because I'm just doing 1 layer of this. And because again everything is hot, it's kind of gonna like melt through there, that cheese and everything, and everything will come together pretty well. So once that's layered on top of there, I went ahead and added more cheese because, like I said earlier, I love the cheese. And then topped it off with the rest of the pasta and meat sauce and green peppers. And then, of course, added the rest of my Parmesan cheese to top it off. And this one is just so that once we take it out of the freezer and put it in the oven, that cheese will pretty much just like melt on top of there, and everything is going to taste really, really delicious. So that was like really easy and really simple. This is one of my favorite freezer dump meals that's very easy to make and also really delicious. Of course, I had to make sure that this is the first thing that I made. Then I went ahead and put a piece of thin foil on it just so that it can cool. And then once it was cool, I added another thicker piece of foil. So now I am doing an Italian spaghetti for my second meal. This one is just as easy, just as simple, but instead of the sweet Italian ground sausage, I am using the Italian ground turkey, and it's a little more zesty than it is sweet, adding more green peppers. I purchased all of the stuff in advance, so I'm not using fresh green peppers. It was a bag of frozen green peppers, and I'm just mixing that in there with more pasta sauce. I always use 2 cans, but this one could not fit 2 cans. So after I mixed in this pasta sauce, I had to take the meat out of the pan and then make just a separate pan of just the sauce. I can let that heat and then add it later. But for most of my Italian dishes, you'll see me just using salt, pepper, and some Italian seasoning. For this one, I also added a half can of diced tomato that was inside of basil and oregano. So while I was waiting for the other sauce to be done, I got started on my third meal, which was the chicken and broccoli Alfredo. This one just required some thin cut chicken breast, or you can use chicken strips, whichever is easier. They're pretty much the same thing. I just like to use the thin ones because they're easier to cook, they cook faster, and they're easier to chop. So I went ahead and just sauteed that on the stove, and then added in some frozen broccoli as well as some Alfredo cream sauce, and made some fettuccine noodles in the pot that's inside of the back. Added some salt to it, a little bit of pepper, no Italian seasoning for this one, just the salt and pepper. As you can see, the sauce for this one is really thick. So later I did take the can that I used, because I did use canned pasta, added some milk and shook it up and warmed that up to make it a little bit less thick. So now I'm going to put both of those meals inside of a pan. In one of them, I just went ahead and poured the spaghetti sauce with the meat and the green peppers into a pan, and now I'm topping it off with the spaghetti noodles and pretty much just mixing it in. For this one, I'm not going to add any cheese on top of it. I'm just going to leave it as is. I like this one with the can of diced tomatoes, and I prefer that this one actually doesn't have like that layer of hard or baked or melted cheese on the top of it. If I am doing like a spaghetti bake, then normally I would add the cheese on top. This one is just a simple meal to last my family about 2 to 3 days. This is actually a lot of spaghetti for us because my son, who is 5, eats very small portions, and I don't eat a ton of it either. The same thing for the broccoli and chicken Alfredo. Just poured the sauce, the chicken, the broccoli into the bottom of the pan and stirred in some fettuccine noodles. And just like that, you guys, I now have 2 more freezer dump meals. So 3 of them in total, super easy. And like I said, all 3 of these are gonna last us about 2 to 3 days a piece. So basically about 6 to 9 days, hopefully about 9 days for all 3 of these meals together is what I am going for, give or take. I did decide to top the Alfredo pasta off with a little bit of Parmesan shredded cheese as well. You can use Parmesan cheese, mozzarella, Italian cheese, whatever you like. I typically stick with Parmesan and Italian shredded cheese with my Alfredo. Now this fourth freezer meal is probably the easiest one yet. All I did was took some ground taco flavored turkey. It's like ground turkey that's already seasoned with the taco flavor basically, and I cooked it on the stove. You can add more seasoning if you want, or you can leave the taste as is. I also added a bit more water than I normally would, just so that once we reheat it, it doesn't dry out. And then once we take it out of the freezer and reheat it, then we'll just go ahead and serve it with some vegetables on some taco shells. So easy. Meal number 5 is another Italian pasta dish. This one is a shrimp fettuccine. So I'm just boiling some fettuccine noodles with a stick of butter, some garlic butter, shrimp scampi seasoning in a packet, as well as some olive oil. And this is how I make like my sauce for the fettuccine. It's not like a thick cream sauce, more so just like a butter, olive oil and seasoning mixture. And then I'm sauteing some shrimp inside of a pan, adding that right on top of the noodles and mixing that in there. And that is it, you guys. I kept this one nice and simple as well. The purpose of this freezer dump series is just so that I can make as many freezer dump meals as I possibly can for my family to enjoy after we bring our baby home. So I didn't want them to be really difficult to make or fancy. I just wanted us to have some dinners that we could eat. So of course I did add some Parmesan and Italian shredded cheese to that fettuccine mixture as well. Next up is a chicken and potato bake. So for this one, I am adding some thawed boneless chicken thighs right into a pan, seasoning it with some salt, some pepper, and some roasted chicken seasoning. And then I'm going to be adding some green beans. The green beans are already cleaned, you guys. The meat for the chicken was already cleaned as well, cleaned and thawed. So I went ahead and got that done beforehand so that prep would be easier, and then added those to the pan. Next, I am just cutting up some yellow potatoes in some small cubes, not a ton of them, just enough of them to go inside of the chicken bake, so that we'll have like the sides, the vegetables, and the chicken all inside of one pan. So I just went ahead and chopped up just a few of them so that the pan wouldn't overflow. And then I also added in some grape tomatoes. I think cherry tomatoes would have been a little bit easier. I'm not sure which one is like a little bit firmer or a little bit bigger, but basically I just wanted to add some half like cherry or grape tomatoes inside of this as well. And then cut up some onion, specifically or mostly for flavoring, not necessarily to eat, just for taste. So not too many of those either. Then I took a can of cream of mushroom soup, mixed it in with some hot water until it had like a soupy texture to it. And I'm using this as a chicken broth basically. So pouring in that cream of mushroom, it has like small, tiny, like barely noticeable mushrooms, but if you really like mushrooms, you can add some more into it. And then I popped that into the oven at 425 and let that cook and bake as well. While I am working on my next freezer dump meal, which is chicken fajitas, really quick, I want to apologize for my son that I'm sure you guys hear playing in the background. That is just mom life. Mom life does not stop, even if you're cooking, working, cleaning, no matter what you're doing. So for this chicken fajita, I just took some thin chicken strip breast and chopped that up or sliced that up, and then sauteed it in the pan with some red and green peppers, some onions, and some chicken fajita sauce. I did coat the bottom of the pan with some olive oil so that nothing would stick together, and that I didn't cook for too long. Those thin chicken strips cook really fast, so I cooked it until it was, just done, and then poured it all in the pan, covered it to let it cool, and once we reheat it, we'll serve it on top of some chicken fajita tortillas. Then I went ahead and moved right along to meal number 8, which is beef teriyaki. So for this one, I took some thin steak slices, 4 thinly sliced steak fillets. I'm cutting that up in cubes, and then gonna saute that inside of a skillet with some frozen broccoli and some olive oil. This didn't take long to cook as well because again I'm using thin sliced. And then once I got it cooked up to a nice temperature, I went ahead and added the teriyaki sauce to it. On the other side of the stove, I did have some rice cooking. So one side of the pan, I poured the cooked rice, and then on the other side of the pan, I poured in the chicken teriyaki, which is just the steak, the broccoli, and the teriyaki sauce. And then of course I added some salt and pepper to the rice, and that one was super easy. Here are all of the meals that I prepared. After they cooled, I added more foil to them, and we went ahead and put them in a deep freezer. I did label them and write on them so my husband would know, but that was pretty much it. It was so simple and so easy. Alright you guys, and with that we sum up today's meal prep. I hope that you guys enjoyed it and got some inspiration from it, some motivation, saw something that you may have liked. Let me know down below in the comments and let me know how I did. If you have any tips to make meal prep a little bit easier, all of the meal planning, meal plan, freezer dump tips and helpful information, I greatly welcome it and encourage you down below in the comments section. But again, I hope that I was also able to inspire you and motivate you as well. If you did enjoy this video, I hope that you'll go ahead and give it a thumbs up for the sake of channel growth. It really does mean a lot to me, you guys, and I truly appreciate all of your support, all of your comments, when you share my content, when you comment below and just say hello. I appreciate you guys so much. So if you enjoyed it, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you are new here and this is your first time on my channel, I would also love for you to subscribe to join the family. I post a new cleaning video every Sunday, and then on Wednesday or Thursdays I also post motherhood and homemaking content as well. I hope that you guys enjoyed it, and that'll be all until next time. Happy homemaking. Bye.